Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Tech Training Emporium. One of the things I realized is a lot of people are struggling with email. So, one of the things we wanted to do up front was give you some quick wins so that you can easily solve your challenges in Google using Gmail. And I want to stress that it's a very powerful tool, it's got all of the power of Google behind it. So, what we want to do is find ways to optimize the settings so that you're not wasting time in Google and in your Gmail. So the first thing I want to do is I like to go to the settings. So this is a brand new account. So you'll see I only have one in unread email. I'm going to guess you have many more than that. The goal is we're going to talk about inbox zero in some detail down the road, but today we're just going to get you set up so that you can start to optimize how you deal with Gmail. There will be other videos on how to do Outlook, but for today we're going to focus on Gmail. So a couple of things. What we want to do is up here you see this little gear icon. You can click it to make the settings come up, or you can click it to make it disappear. And I'm going to show you this little Google Apps thing for a second. A lot of people don't know this, but once you have a Google account, you have access to all of these apps. And to be honest, sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming. What you need to do is if you left click and hold, so you can literally drag and drop. So what I do is I organize this based on the things I use the most often. So that's one little tip, saves you some time. Um, again, I like to put the Gmail here, and then you can put other things. Now let's go into the quick settings. And one of the things we're going to want to do is we want to set the display density to compact. So that's this first option here, density, and we want compact. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we want multiple inboxes, and we will customize that in a second. And is there anything else quickly? Okay, there we go. The other thing, and I apologize, they've literally just updated their view, so some of the things I'm looking for are hidden. So we're going to use the new view, not the original view. So I'm just going to show you some of the general settings. You can set your default, whether it's reply to all or reply. Usually I like to reply to all if it's relevant. I can click reply just to individuals. So I'm going to set the default to reply. That way I know I have to choose reply to all. And a couple of things we're going to look at. And by the way, one of the things we'll teach you down the road is how to consolidate all your emails in one place. These are all sort of defaults. I generally leave them here. And what we're looking for, I turn off mail notifications because I find them very, very annoying and they interrupt me. So I check email when I need to, not when the little thing bings and tells me to. So I highly recommend you make sure your mail notifications are off. And here I like to have all the stars just because it's easier and you can use it. So we've got all of these. We're going to show you how to set this up down the road, but the first thing is you want to click on all stars as presets, and as you can see, everything is in use. We are going to turn on the keyboard shortcuts. And what I like to do is you can put a picture in so people know who you are. That's always a good step. And I like to let contacts fill in. And the really cool thing is you can have multiple signatures. So it's worthwhile if you're sending a lot, you should have signatures. For example, if you're in business, you should have a signature telling people, if you have a podcast or a social media profile, you should make sure you share that there. And another one that a lot of people don't know about is the vacation responder. This is handy if you want to have an auto office and you can set it. So those are most of the big things here. Labeled labels, this is really the defaults. We're going to talk about show if unread down the road. That's very, very important. And this is where you can create labels. This gets really useful very quickly. For the inbox, we're going to clear these. So we want our multiple inbox position to be right of the inbox. And we're going to get rid of stars, drafts. We'll come back and pair that later. And it doesn't hurt to enable the reading pane, sorry. And you can do the right of your inbox. And we're going to turn this markers off. And we're going to turn off past actions, and we're going to say don't override. So these are all within settings. So really we've covered general, labels, and inbox. All of these others are more advanced. We're not going to cover them today. One of the other best practices we'll teach down the road is how to forward all of your emails so that you get everything in one place. That way you don't need to have 50 different logins for multiple emails. So that's some of the basic setups. Sorry, let's go into the inbox. Oh, before you do, make sure you hit save changes. Okay. Sorry, we need at least one section here. We'll come back to that. And what it does, you'll see, is we've got multiple inboxes. So let's get rid of that. We want to default. There we go. Oops. Let's customize that. Okay. So we'll add labels here. We'll have to come back to that. So that's good for now. This is the basic setup. And again, once we've done this, we don't have to keep doing it. So at this moment, this is your main inbox. This is what you're going to see. Our goal is to get this to 0. Over on the right here, we're going to create certain tags, and we'll do that in the next video. So right now you should be able to see very cleanly. You just have the one inbox, and this right now is just a duplicate placeholder. In the next video, we will show you how to edit and clean that up. Thank you. Everyone, welcome back. We are going to continue our conversation about Gmail setup and workflow. So in our last video, we talked about enabling multiple inboxes. We talked about enabling special stars, and we disabled the custom inbox tabs that are social, promotion, etc. We set our display density to compact. We enabled some keyboard shortcuts. And in this video, we're going to do a couple of other things. I'm going to show you how to map the special stars to inboxes, and we're going to get into creating labels. Now, the number one thing I want you to recognize when it comes to any kind of email, the best thing you can do with an email is avoid getting it in the first place. And what I mean is, if you are inundated and you're constantly dealing with hundreds of emails a day, my first step would be to look at what you're receiving and be very, very conscientious about unsubscribing from mass newsletters, unsubscribing from things that cause you a lot of noise in your inbox, but don't add value. And one of the things I want to remind most people, I think people lose sight of it, email is meant to enable our work. It's to help us accomplish something. It's to help us feel good. It's to help us achieve something in life. It shouldn't replace everything else in our life. So if you're spending all of your time, and statistics show the average office worker spends at least a third of their day on email, the best thing you can do is figure out ways to reduce the email. So, like I said, the simplest way, the fastest way to process an email is to never get it. So, if you've got things like newsletters, maybe you need to know them, maybe you don't. Think about what comes into your newsletter, into your inbox. And one of the things I would say we'll get into the advanced is you want to subscribe very cautiously. You want to ask, how frequent are these things going to be? How often will I get them? Will I have to action them? Are they reference only? Can I find it somewhere else on the internet if I don't have it in my inbox? So you want to subscribe cautiously and unsubscribe mercilessly. My rule is if I go 3 or 4 emails from a source and they're not relevant to me and I'm not opening them, I unsubscribe. And by the way, if somebody doesn't respect your unsubscribe, I send it to spam. That way I don't have to deal with it. The other thing I want to share is we're going to talk a lot about archiving emails. Archiving is not the same as deleting. So I'm going to show you an example here. This little button, I can archive this message. It's an important message. It's about setting up my Google account. I want to archive it. What archive does is it takes it out of my inbox and it allows me to forget about it. But if I ever need to find it, I can search up here. Now, if I delete it or report spam, when I delete it, it goes to my deleted, and you'll see that in trash over here. You can occasionally empty your trash. If I report spam, it goes to the spam folder. And usually what I do is I have a setting so that my spam folder is emptied every 30 days. That way, if something important comes in but accidentally goes to spam, I can still find it, but I'm not inundated with spam. So again, I prefer to unsubscribe first. If they don't listen to me, then I will send them to spam. So if I archive this, it just disappears from my inbox. So you want to get in the habit of archiving as much as possible. And again, if somebody responds or sends you something new on that email, it will pop up in your inbox. There's also an option you can mute emails. I'm not going to show you that right now, but the thing about muting, you need to do it cautiously because if you mute it, you never see the responses to it. So archiving, at least it's still in play. You can still quickly find it. Mute it, you have to know that you need to be watching for it. So that's just a quick little overview. Now we're going to jump into the actual settings. So as always, you can click the little settings gear up top. And here you see we set compact. Now here we're going to customize our multiple inboxes. And what I want you to do is pick labels that have meaning to you. So we have a list. So for example, has red star. I'm going to put that in here. So has red star. That is a to-do and it's urgent. Okay. Now the next one I might do an orange star. And that is to-do important. So it's not urgent. And then let's do has yellow star. And we're going to make the yellow star to do normal. Okay. And we want to keep this to probably 5 at the absolute maximum. We don't want to overload ourselves. Now I'm going to do a purple star. And you can experiment. You can use different colors, different options. But let's say the purple star, let's use that for a waiting response. And last but not least, let's use blue info. And let's call that frequent reference. So we'd only star something as a frequent reference if it's something we're always looking up and we always have to find. So what we're going to do is we're going to show the multiple inboxes. This is a preference thing. I like it on the right. You can do it above or below the inbox. We might as well enable the reading pane. And let's put it below the inbox. And let's use the importance marker, past actions. It won't impact us a lot, but let's put it there. And then the most important thing is you need to hit save changes. So now, as you see, we're going to get emails. And when we're processing emails, we can add to do urgent, important, normal, waiting response, and frequent response. But that's a quick high-level introduction. So we've covered the mapping special stars. Now let's get into the auto advance and send an archive. So again, we'd go to all settings, the gear, and then all settings. And under general, I like to do send an archive in the reply. That way we can send an archive. We don't need to keep remembering to go back to it. Another real feature, if you want to get very streamlined, is you want to create your custom default text style. So this will save you some time when you're setting things up. And personally, I just don't like to wait for images to load, so I always let it do that. We need grammar, spelling, autocorrect, writing, personalization. Okay, I like to play with new things. I generally like to explore them. So I will enable experimental access. If you're not a cutting edge person, I would not leave that on. What I like about conversation view is if you have 5 emails on one topic, the same subject, it compresses them into one unread in your inbox. Whereas if you have it off, it will show all 5 topics. So it's just up to you what you prefer. I like fewer notifications, fewer unread emails, so I leave it on. And there's now under preview pane, you want to set it 3 seconds is probably enough. If you hover it over, it'll mark it red or not. And again, I turn off the notifications. Keyboard shortcuts should be on. Okay. Okay. And by the way, one of the most amazing things about Google is if you're ever stuck with Gmail in any way, all you have to do is go to Google Chrome, google.com, and just type in Gmail blank. So for example, if you needed to know, how do I add another email account? You can just go to Google and it'll help you in a heartbeat. So this will show some filters. It'll show blocked addresses. You can set up your email and configure it as you like. I don't have any add-ons. You can install them if you want. We won't get into that. If you want to chat with your team, you can leave Google Chat on or off. And if you meet using Google Workspace, you can show the meet section. I don't use it right now, so I'm going to leave it off. Now, under advanced, this is where we get to play with some stuff. So we want to enable auto advance. And what that does is instead of going back out to your inbox after you delete or archive something, it'll go to the next or the previous conversation. So it's just a little speed up tip. Also, I highly recommend you turn on templates. If you send a lot of proposals or you send a lot of common emails, create templates. That'll save you hours of your life. You can enable custom keyboard shortcuts. And if you want your chat to be on the right side, you can do that. And last but not least, I'm a big fan I like to enable the unread message, and that'll show up at the top. Okay, now if we want to work offline, I rarely do. I would only do this if, for example, I was traveling. And then themes, you can set themes. So those are the most important things. And when you're done, oops, the save button is not showing up. Always make sure before you get out of settings that you save your changes. Okay, so that you can see they've added the chat, the spaces, and the meet. We can disable that if we want more space. So we've enabled auto advance, we've done the send and archive, we've mapped. Now the next thing, and this is probably my favorite tip because a lot of people don't seem to know this, but when you have emails, you can very easily create labels. And there's two ways to do it. One, from within the actual email, you can create a label. The other is using the left-hand side. You can manage your labels or create new labels. So I'm going to show you this. These are the system labels. They're the defaults. And we'll talk about show if unread. But basically what you want to do is have a hierarchy of your labels. And what this does is it allows you to easily filter things out of your inbox and then come back to it later. So the most common labels, I create what I call the high level labels. And these are stored alphabetically. So I use the number sign and a number to create my high level. And the reality is, do whatever makes sense for you. So I'm going to use a few that make sense for me. And I'll just quickly create. So you can technically create as many labels as you want. My advice to you is have a few top level labels where you can sort of look at it, and then have nested labels, which I'll show you next. But what the nested label does is it puts it all beneath the high level. So for example, filing cabinet. Okay. So the 5 main high level labels I've got, I have newsletters, I have people, projects, parking lot, filing cabinet. Newsletters, that's anything that comes in on a regular basis and I don't have to do anything with it, but it's just for my information, maybe for research. So I put that label on because there's no action, it's just there and I can easily find it. Under people, again, you can add as much or as little detail as you want. I usually would have a nested label, so I'm going to show you that next. So we're going to create a people. And under people, we're going to create prospect. And I'll show you this a little bit more here. Just give me a second. So we might nest our family, our friends, and I'll just show you what this looks like in the inbox. So I like to have an inner circle. These are people that no matter what, I get to them as quickly as possible. So we have clients, family, okay. And let's just create one more. Excellent. Okay, so you'll see under people, we've got clients, family, friends, inner circle, prospects. Then we have projects, and then we have parking lot. So projects would be active projects that require ongoing things to be done or tasks to manage or emails to track. For example, I do a digital magazine, so every month is a project. And then parking lot is things that might become a project or something I might want to look at. I don't have a definitive, I don't have the information I need to decide. So I'm going to put it in the parking lot. And once a week, I'm going to review that parking lot, and things will either be actioned, scheduled as a to do or delegated, or they'll be filed and they'll go into the filing cabinet. And the filing cabinet is where all of our long-term items are at rest. And the reality is anything with these labels, once they've been labeled, we can mark them as archived, and then we don't have to see them in our inbox. So that is now, I'm just going to show you this. When you click on the inbox, you can see these custom ones, and you can edit the colors. So maybe you want to create a label for newsletters. Maybe you want to create a label for people, and you can label all your subfolders. And you can go through that. That's just to make it easy for you to see things. Now I want to show you under the label. So I do this on all of my labels. So we'll just start at the top here so I don't miss anything. I always change this to show if unread. And what that does is if there's no unreads, the label just disappears. And what that does is it tells me if I've moved something or given something a label and I haven't taken the necessary action. But then if I want to see it again, I just click on the show more or show less. So you can see how those all come. So I'm going to change that. Oh, good. Okay, so that's defaulted. So you can either click on it to expand. And this is great because once you've labeled stuff, you can search by it. So for example, you see up here in the search, you use the word label, the colon, the 2 dots, and then the name of the label, and then you can find anything in there, and you can add, does it have an attachment? When was it sent? Was it from me? Was it to me? Play with the search, because that's where, if you can get good at the search, you're going to save a lot of time and energy. Okay, so that is how you add labels. And I'm going to break the video off here. The next video, we're going to talk about using the filters. And we're not going to put filters on everything. We're going to be selective, but the goal of the filter is to save you time. So I hope that helps. By now you should see the email inbox, and you can actually add statuses, things like that. So we're going to leave it at active. But this is what the inbox looks like. When it's inbox 0, you'll see there's no unread emails, no new mail there. And in this case, this is a brand new account, so I haven't added anything, but this would be where we flag an email. So just as an example, I'm going to send a test. Okay. So now I sent this test. So because I sent it, it will show up as an unread in the sent box. Again, you want to get in the habit of archiving your sent as well. And it's actually disappeared from my inbox. All right, so let's just open this. Now, if I was to be reading this and I wanted to manually apply a label, I would click on the label here and I can either type into search, or I can click on any or all that I want the label to add. So what we'll see is I've clicked number 1 and number 2, and what you can see in the subject header, let's go to the inbox, and you'll see that it now shows up in newsletters and in people. See the label there, and it shows that there's one unread in each. It is the same email, so when I click on it, and by the way, I can remove the label if I'm done with it or it doesn't belong there, but that's a great way to manage your emails. And let's come back to that little one. Actually, I'm going to keep the recording going. Let's talk about filters. So one of my favorite things to do is add filters. So let's say you get a lot of emails from Aunt Martha. She sends you your cat joke of the day, dog joke of the day, horse joke of the day, random things. What you can do is you go to the email. So you open up the email, and in every email you get this context. So you can archive it, you can report it as spam, you can delete it. Again, I prefer archiving over deleting. You can mark it as unread so that you can come back to it later. Please don't use that, because our goal is to get everything as read. We're not fanatical about the inbox zero concept, but we want to minimize distraction. Now, if you want to read Aunt Martha's email, but you want to snooze it, you can click on the snooze, or you can create a task to remind yourself to do that. We'll get into tasks in another session. You can move it out of the label into the inbox. You can add a label. The part we want here is, and again, you could add a star. So as an example, if we added a star, you see the star, you just, so if we go to the inbox, the star should show up. Hold on. Okay. What we want to do is click on filter messages like these. You might recall earlier I talked about muting messages. Again, maybe you want to mute Aunt Martha for a bit, but just to warn you, you won't know that she sent you another email. So you're going to have to unmute her down the road. Instead, I'd rather filter. So when it comes to filtering, filtering is a magic thing, and you don't want to get fanatical and slow yourself down trying to create a filter for everything. But if you have, for example, a key client, something important and urgent that you can't miss, or you have, say, a newsletter that you get regularly and you don't need to read it, you just need to reference it, filtering is your best friend. And I have a lot of friends who are neurodiverse, and in the ADHD realm, they get distracted easily by email. So one of the things you can do with a filter is avoid seeing the email in the first place. And you'll recall earlier I said if you're getting a lot of email from somebody, the best thing you can do is decide, do I want to get them or not? And you can unsubscribe. But if you need them, say it's an industry newsletter and it's your primary research tool, what you can do is filter. And the great thing about the filter is you can either choose a from. So somebody, say, for example, it's Aunt Martha sending you an email, you can put that in the from. Or if it's addressed to, so maybe it's emails from Aunt Martha to your Uncle Herbert and you. So you can put that in there. You can put, for example, a lot of newsletters, they'll have a subject line, something monthly newsletter. You could put in the words to filter, for example, newsletter. You could have an exclusionary, so sometimes it has the word newsletter, doesn't have the word urgent, something like that. And then you can even do a size parameter, and you can decide, does it have an attachment or not? The more specific you are, the more things you fill in, the more things you're going to miss. So for example, if I get a lot of newsletters and I know it comes from info at something, I'll put the info at something email up here. Now, what you can do is you can do a search to see what comes up, or what you can do is create filter. We're going to create filter, and I'll explain that in a second. Now, this is where you have the power. So if it is a newsletter, one of the things I highly recommend, if it's not something urgent, it's not something you need to read, it's something that you need to reference later, I archive it and skip the inbox. I mark it as read, and I will apply the label. So you click the checkbox, and then you can pick from the list. Now, maybe I want to star it, maybe I don't. In this case, I'm not going to. You can forward it to someone else. So if you get, support emails or something, you can forward it. We're not going to cover forward or delete. Again, delete cautiously. And let's say it is your Aunt Martha. You want to say never send her to spam. And if you want, you can have a template. We're not going to do that. I like Aunt Martha, so we're going to make sure we mark her emails as important. If it's just a regular newsletter, you can say never mark it as important, but here we'll pretend. You have the advantage. You can put this, so let's say it's a promotions newsletter. You don't need to do that. But here's the little magic box where it all happens. We have one matching conversation, so it did the search, and you click that. And as soon as we hit create filter, it will take all emails, in this case from Tech Training Emporium. It'll skip the inbox, mark it as read, apply the label newsletter, won't send it to spam. It'll always mark it as important. It'll add category of promotion, and it'll apply. So all future messages, in this case from Aunt Martha, will be filtered. So all you do is you hit create filter, and then in the future you can see that it shows up over here as starred. So there's, again, we'd remove the star because it's not a to-do item. But now if we go down into here and we click on newsletters, we can see there's none unread, but this email has been moved to newsletters. So that's, and then again, you can always go back and you can create a new filter. So what I do is if I get a lot of emails from somebody, I'll do a search. So let's say I'm getting emails from somebody, I do a search, and then you can select all, or you can select read, unread, starred, unstarred, whatever you want. And then I do the filter, and that way it just magically gets filed. Now, the last thing I want to share just as kind of a bonus. So that's creating the high level labels, creating some filters. The next step is to actually clean your inbox, but I wanted to share a high level tip, and that is something called email siblings. And it's magical because Google has a little shortcut where if you use the plus sign, so let's say, for example, in this case, our email is techtrainingemporium@gmail.com. I'm going to show you this. @gmail.com. Google has a wonderful shortcut between your actual email and the @ symbol. You can put the plus sign and then a label. So in our case, we have number 1, and best practice, you don't want to use spaces if you don't have it. But what we'll do is you can use that email to subscribe now for newsletter, and instead of you applying the filter over and over, Google will automatically read the plus, the content between the plus and the @ And what it'll do is it'll add the label and take it out of your inbox and move it here. So that's just a really nice little tip. It's handy. Um, it's a bonus because, for example, if you have a lot of email from family, you can put plus family and it'll add the family label. Or if it's from a client, it's just a nice little shortcut. And I use this for newsletters all the time, or if I just want to, if I'm signing up for something and I'm not sure about it, I want it to go straight to a label rather than my inbox. So I hope you found some of those tips useful. We'll have another video where we actually go through and clean the inbox, and I'll show you some videos we'll do about tasks and contacts. But for now, I think that's a really good start. So if you can do this, do the one-time setup, and then create your filters, you are on the way to cleaning out your inbox. Thank you. Hello, welcome back. This is the final segment of the Gmail workflow. We've gone through Gmail setup and workflow. So we've done the one-time setup already in past video. We've created some filters. And if you need to create a filter without going into the actual email, let's say you don't know what you're looking for, you can go to the Google search and you can click advanced. So in this case, we've got, say, testing, and you can see here's how we create the filter. So you just fill in that. I'm going to show you how to set up a tag or a special star. And Google's made it really easy. If you're looking at a message and you want to star it, if you just hover over this star, you see it says not starred there. If you single click, it shows you starred, which is the yellow star. If you click it again, it shows you orange star. If you pause too long, it goes away. But if you just keep clicking, you can go through, I believe there's 9 or 10 of these in total. So for example, we have an orange star. Now, if we go back to the inbox, and let's just show you this. So let's mark this as unread. Now, if we go to the inbox, it shows us in newsletters, and it's not showing up over here. So let's just check the settings. So if it has an orange star, it should be labeled to do important. I suspect it's not working because we moved it out of the inbox. But when this is all set up and your email is working, there you can see, just needed to be refreshed. There is my orange star. So that tells me it's important, not urgent. If I change this to a red star, and then I hit refresh, you'll see it moved up into to do urgent. So you can expand any of these to see things. And your goal is to clean out your email. So one of the things I like to do, if I have a bunch of email, I'll pick an arbitrary date, say 30 days previous to today, and I'm going to assume that anything I have in action in the last 30 days are probably not going to get actioned. So so if we pick, say, a date, and we want to pick all mail, but basically what we could do is say anything that is within 1 month here. Let's see what we come up with. So basically you'll see here's the emails. You can change your So basically, we set the date range here. So you can see the format is after colon, 4 digits of the year slash 1 digit a month slash 2 digits of the day. So set your date range. And honestly, let's just keep life simple. So today is October 19th. Any emails that I've received prior to November 19th, so I'm using the search before colon 2022 slash 09 slash 19, or you can do just 9 slash 19. It takes either 1 or 2 digit for months. Anything older than that, what I want to do is click on this select. Now there's nothing here, so I'm not able to show it exactly, but you want to select it, and then you want to archive all of the selected emails. And what that does now, if you're have some hangups about that and you're nervous about that, the other thing you can do is you can create a label, and then you can always find them later. But again, we're archiving, not deleting. So if you archive something, you can always find it. But the reality is, I've seen people, I think the worst case, I saw something like 30,000 unread emails. But even if you're a normal person and maybe you've got 200 or 300, the reality is if you're not able to keep up with your email today, you're not going to catch up going backwards. So one of the things I do is I archive so that we can get rid of them and move them out of our space.